My name is Robin. Standing in the ruins of my once cozy apartment, I'm reminded of how quickly life can turn upside down. The picture frames are shattered, the couch cushions are sliced open, and the TV screen is cracked right down the middle. It's a scene of chaos and destruction, a far cry from the stable life I thought I had. I grew up in a small town. My parents, Tom and Lily, were hard-working folks. Dad was a mechanic, always with grease on his hands and a kind smile on his face. Mom was a schoolteacher, patient and nurturing. They taught me the values of honesty, hard work, and loyalty. I always believed in building relationships based on these principles. I met Jake at a local coffee shop. He was charming, with a warm smile and an easy-going nature. We started dating, and after 2 years, we decided to move in together. The apartment was mine. I had signed the lease, done the credit check, and filled it with my furniture. Jake had been staying over most nights long before we made it official. Moving in together felt more like an inevitable step rather than a decision. Then, one ordinary Monday evening, while I was still at work finishing up some reports, my phone buzzed. It was Jake. "I need the apartment tonight," he texted. The way he phrased it was off. It wasn't his usual, "Can we have some alone time?" Or, "I'll explain later." Just a blunt demand. I replied carefully, asking what time I should come back. The typing bubble appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, he said he wasn't sure and suggested I stay at my friend Mia's place. He'd text me when I could come home. My stomach tightened. I asked what was going on, and his response was immediate: "Just trust me. Don't come home and don't ask why." The words felt rehearsed, cold and emotionless. I could have demanded an explanation, but instead, I simply typed "all right." In that moment, I knew our relationship had changed. I called Mia and asked if I could crash at her place. She paused and asked if it was that bad. I said it probably was and that I'd explain when I got there. I left work around 7 o'clock, grabbed some takeout that I barely tasted, and drove across town. By 8:15, I was sitting on Mia's couch, staring into space. She handed me a glass of wine, and I realized I hadn't even asked for it. When she asked what had happened, I told her flatly that Jake had told me not to come home to my own apartment. Mia frowned and said it wasn't normal. I admitted that I didn't know if he was cheating, but I was determined to find out. We had installed a smart lock system when we moved in. I told myself it was because there had been a break in 2 floors down the year before, not because I didn't trust Jake. The app tracked every entry, with timestamps and categorizations. I opened it and saw that Jake had entered the apartment at 7:46 p.m. Which was normal. But then, at 8:01 p.m. there was a guest access. My chest tightened. Mia, looking over my shoulder, quietly said he had someone there. I automatically said it could be anyone, a friend or a coworker. But she countered, reminding me of how he had told me not to come home or ask questions. I scrolled further and checked the building's directory app. At 7:58 p.m. a guest had been buzzed in. Her name was Ava Thompson. The name hit me like a punch. Ava was Jake's ex-girlfriend, the woman he'd sworn was in the past. I quickly Googled her. She was married, had 2 kids, and had a lifestyle blog filled with family photos. Her husband, Ethan Thompson, was tagged in nearly every post. It seemed like a perfect little life, and right now, she was in my apartment. Mia looked at me and asked what I was going to do. I stared at the screen, the timestamps like a silent confession. I decided not to confront Jake directly. Instead, I took screenshots of every log and timestamp. I knew that if Jake thought he could keep me in the dark, he was wrong. I thought about Ethan. If I were in his shoes, I'd want to know. I gathered all the proof, the smart lock logs, the building entry showing Ava being buzzed in, and a photo of my lease with my address visible. I opened Instagram DMs and started to type. I rewrote the message 3 times. I didn't want to sound too angry or too soft. Finally, I settled on the truth. Hi Ethan, you don't know me, and I'm truly sorry to contact you like this. My name is Robin. I live at, address. My boyfriend asked me not to come home tonight, and when I checked my smart lock logs, I saw that Ava entered my apartment this evening. I've attached screenshots so you can see the timestamps yourself. I thought you deserved to know. I'm sorry to be the one telling you. I stared at the message for a long time. Once I hit send at 9:22 p.m. There was no going back. Mia exhaled slowly and said it was going to blow up everything. I admitted that I wasn't okay with it, but I was okay with the truth. At 9:29 p.m. The message showed as read, but there was no response. We turned on the TV for background noise, but neither of us was really watching. I checked my phone every few minutes. Jake hadn't texted, which told me a lot. Then, at 10:46 p.m. My phone buzzed. It was Ethan asking for the address of the apartment. My stomach dropped, but I sent it to him. Less than a minute later, he said he was on his way and thanked me for telling him. Mia's eyes widened, and I said I wasn't going to stop him. This wasn't my confrontation to manage. At 11:02 p.m. My phone pinged with a notification from the building security app. The main entrance had been accessed, which was normal. But 4 minutes later, there was a hallway disturbance detected. Mia's head snapped up, and I didn't answer her question. She opened her laptop and pulled up the building's public security feed. One of her old clients lived in the building, so she still had access. We watched as a man I knew was Ethan stormed down the hall and stopped in front of my apartment door. He knocked once, hard. The door opened, and Jake appeared first, followed by Ava. She was wearing one of my oversized t-shirts. Even through the low-resolution feed, I saw the moment recognition hit her face. Her expression collapsed. Ethan shoved past Jake and stepped inside. The door stayed open, and we could only hear the sharp, furious tones. 30 seconds later, Jake bolted out of the apartment, shoes in hand, shirt half buttoned, sprinting towards the elevator like a man trying to escape. Ava followed, screaming something we couldn't hear. Ethan threw a shoe that hit Jake square between the shoulders. Then he turned back to Ava. Whatever he said made her physically recoil. She stepped backward into my doorway. Ethan walked away without looking back, and Ava stood there, frozen. Neighbors opened their doors and peered out, phones in hand. My apartment door stayed wide open. My phone buzzed with a message from Jake asking where I was. I didn't answer. He then said he could explain and that it wasn't what I thought. I blocked his number. At 11:34 p.m. Ethan messaged me again, thanking me and saying he was sorry this had happened to me too. I replied that I was sorry I had to tell him, and he said it was better to know. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on Mia's couch, replaying the hallway footage in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined what was happening inside my apartment after the cameras stopped recording. In the morning, at 9:58 a.m. My phone rang. It was the building manager, Mr. Harris. He said we needed to talk about last night. I automatically said I wasn't there, but he reminded me it was my apartment. Several residents had filed noise complaints, and the door had been left open for a long time. He also told me there had been some property damage. The drive back to the apartment was surreal. The city looked the same, but my life felt like it had been ripped apart. Mr. Harris met me in the lobby and warned me about the damage. When I entered the apartment, I was shocked. It was a scene of violence. The furniture was destroyed, the bookshelf was tipped over, and the bedroom was in shambles. Mr. Harris explained that the security footage showed Ava leaving around midnight, but after 2 a.m. Jake was seen on camera throwing things, breaking items, crying, and screaming. He left around 4:15 a.m. And hadn't returned. I laughed bitterly, realizing he had destroyed my apartment because he got caught. There was a police report. Ava had filed one for trespassing and disturbance. I asked to have the locks changed, and Mr. Harris agreed. Mia came over with cleaning supplies, and neighbors stopped by, some to help, some to apologize, and some just to stare. Mrs. Lee from 4B knocked softly and handed me a flash drive with the footage from her doorbell camera. It showed everything: Ava's arrival, the confrontation, and Jake's destruction of my apartment. At 3:40 p.m. My phone rang again. I knew it was Jake. His voice was hoarse as he asked to talk to me. I told him he had already said enough. He said he had made a mistake, but I pointed out that he had planned it. I asked how long it had been going on, and he whispered 3 months. He said he loved me and that Ava meant nothing, but I asked why he had destroyed my apartment. He snapped that he was humiliated because I had sent Ethan there. I told him he had ruined everything the first time he cheated on me in my home. He said he hated me, and I said it made things easier. I hung up and blocked his number. By Thursday morning, the story had spread through the building. Ethan had filed for divorce within 48 hours. Word spread that he had shown up at Ava's office, calmly asking her to explain herself in front of her colleagues. Her wedding ring came off that day. Jake tried to come back on Wednesday evening, but the new lock stopped him. He argued with the front desk, claiming he lived there. Mr. Harris didn't budge and said he'd call the police if Jake didn't leave. Jake borrowed a stranger's phone and called me. I told him he had destroyed most of his things himself and that what was left was boxed in the lobby. He had until Friday to pick it up or I'd donate it. He said he was upset and panicked, but I reminded him that he had planned the affair. By Friday, the apartment was filled with insurance adjusters and contractors. The total damage came to just over $4,000. Insurance covered most of it, but Jake paid nothing. He never came for his things, so I donated the clothes, recycled the broken electronics, and threw away the rest. Ethan messaged me one last time, saying he was sorry about the damage and that none of it was my fault. I replied that Ava and Jake had made their choices. He thanked me for saving him from wasting more years. 2 months later, my apartment was repaired. I started therapy, not because I felt broken, but because betrayal leaves a mark. I also started dating again, casually. Mr. Harris once told me I was a bit of a legend in the building, and Mrs. Lee brings me cookies every Sunday, saying I handled things with dignity. I don't know about dignity, but I know that when Jake told me not to come home and not to ask why, he underestimated me. The smart lock logs showed me the truth, and I had the courage to tell it. Sometimes, that's all it takes for the consequences to catch up.